What's the worst thing you could do with the click of a mouse? Steal information? Crash a computer? Or kill the lights? All of them.
This week on Click, the rise of cyber warfare. We'll ask which countries are on the attack, what they're after, how they succeed, and why many security experts now believe we can't stop them. We'll also check up on a brand new way of raising money for healthcare. All that plus the latest tech news and a website that stress tests your password in Webscape. Welcome to Click. I'm Spencer Kelly. The internet can be a dangerous place, and keeping users safe online is a big deal these days. No one wants their bank details swiped or their family photos wiped by malware. But when that online user and the attacker are nation states, the stakes are far higher. Dan Simmons reports on this highly secretive global war.
It's what every government fears, the hostile takeover of key infrastructure like transport systems or power stations. This is a simulation run by an agency working for the UK government. The attack bypasses the control room that thinks everything's okay. Its creators aren't the only ones who think this is an incident waiting to happen.
As we see more and more infrastructure being connected to networks, the Armageddon moment certainly could look like water systems being turned off or electricity plants across a nation being shut down. I'd be probably expecting some country will face an attack in the next 3 years that will be successful in shutting down the power grid. That is highly likely.
Europe's biggest digital security conference held earlier this year has a worrying message. Inside, the suits are talking to the suits about how they can protect their company's secrets, the jobs they create, and our private information. Jaime Blasco is one of the good guys, an online detective. His security company, Alien Vault, unlike most others, is interested in and actively tracks down hackers. Like many others, he's confident the Chinese state is supporting more cyber espionage than any other nation. But how does he know?
Okay, so some examples are, for instance, the time zone that they use. On the other hand, we have found a lot of references to Mandarin and stuff in the malwares. To not look very obvious, what they do is they use proxies to proxy the connections to the real attackers, and we were able to trace those connections to the last hop, and every time the last hop was in mainland China.
Security experts in the US tracked down attacks against 140 American companies to this single building in Shanghai. And that suggests it's a well-organised, well-funded effort. Attacks take place over months, sometimes years. And whilst some attacks from China are very sophisticated, most gain access to sensitive data by using a well-practiced con. Dominic's story from security firm Sourcefire showed me how easy it can be with an openly available, off-the-shelf piece of software.
Look at this email from Mary Jane's boss, Dominic Story. And he's just said to her, "Hey Mary, I just saw this link on bbc.co.uk's Click site. It's really interesting on translation." So Mary would say, "Oh, I think I'll click that link." And as she clicks it, she's going to actually be taken to an attacker site, but she'll never know.
The software has allowed Dominic to duplicate the BBC Click site, which asks Mary to run an application. And the hackers need just one person inside an institution to accept this to get inside the company.
I can now interact with her machine. So for example, what is Mary Jane looking at? So I type screenshot and it will go and grasp exactly what's on Mary's machine. So I have reached into Mary's machine across the internet and grasped exactly what she's looking at. Take a shell onto Mary's machine and now I have full access to everything on Mary's hard drive.
Once inside, the hackers can then move quickly to other machines, sometimes finding exactly what they want within a few days. Thankfully, the same idea can be used to fool the intruders by setting up a fake system to allow Hamey to study them.
It's true that most of them realize it's a trap and then they disappear, but I mean, it doesn't matter because you are able to analyze the techniques that they are using.
Casidian is a global defence and security provider, currently protecting government departments, including the military, in France, Germany and the UK. This is a mock-up of its operations room. The British military didn't want us filming the real thing. Analysts scan the chatter between computers looking for anything suspicious. Repeat attempts at passwords or a connection to a new computer with unusual volumes of traffic might spark a referral up the chain of command. This is active monitoring by humans for highly sensitive potential UK targets. Andrew Beckett is the boss. He's worked at GCHQ and protected the royal family in the past. I asked him who was on the attack.
You can get techniques or attack techniques and attack tools very cheaply from the internet. You can buy expertise that wasn't available for traditional methods of espionage. And so we are seeing even quite small countries actively engaged in state-sponsored cyber attacks for the purposes of supporting state industry through the theft of intellectual property or disruption.
From the security experts we've spoken to, it seems different styles of attacks are emanating from different countries. Whilst China appears to be the most active, it's Russia and Eastern Europe where many of the most sophisticated attacks are originating, needing vast resources and often lasting several months. And then there's the United States. The revelations from former CIA spook Edward Snowden point to widespread surveillance of telecoms and the internet both inside and outside the United States. And what of Western Europe? Both Germany and France are known to have an offensive online capability. Could those countries be considered hostile to the US or the UK?
Yes, or on the face of it. Obviously, final decisions on those are taken at higher levels by the relevant national authorities.
But do you think the Allies are behind it, or do you think they've just been hijacked?
We're not naive enough to think that the countries aren't involved in industrial espionage in support of their industry. I'm not surprised. I would fully expect that to be the case.
It's also widely accepted that the UK now has an offensive capability, though its targets are less clear. With experts now saying that security breaches are inevitable, the question is how to minimise the danger and the damage.
Visibility is the problem, is making this problem easier to spot, because today it's totally invisible and we're all suffering as a result of it.
In the last week, the UK government has announced targeted support for 160 companies seen as crucial to the economy and infrastructure. All firms are being encouraged to admit when they've been attacked. The EU is considering making this a legal requirement. And every firm should have a post-incident response that may include being able to section off or shut down certain systems, as well as how to deal with customers. High-tech monitoring of systems may not be the whole answer, though. When it comes to protecting the infrastructure that we rely on, power stations, oil refineries, water purification stations, well, those plants often have technology which might be 20 or 30 years old. Turning them off may not be the safest answer to protecting against an attack. So to solve that problem, researchers have had to get their hands dirty. Testing on independent hardware controllers like this one has become a priority. The fear is that if they were hacked, power stations could be sabotaged without any warning.
But if somebody gets into it and reprograms it, they've got potentially millions of machines just waiting to go and go after whatever the latest target happens to be. And that could be the UK.
If there's a lesson to be learnt from all of this, it's that serious money is now flooding into malicious attacks over the net and that no one can be truly safe. At the moment, it appears that countries attacking the most have the upper hand. And any institution that thinks its online defences can't be breached may struggle to respond when they realise there's a foreign attacker inside their system.
Dan Simmons. So what do you think? More protection almost certainly means more intrusion into our lives, but is that a price that you're prepared to pay? You know the address. Click at bbc.co.uk with your thoughts, please. And next up, a look at this week's tech news. A hacker has taken over a webcam which was being used as a baby monitor and shouted obscenities at a sleeping child. They were also able to remotely control the device. ABC News revealed how parents Mark and Lauren Gilbert heard what sounded like a European male voice coming from their 2-year-old daughter's bedroom at their home in Houston, Texas. On entering the room, the parents also received verbal abuse via the camera. Their daughter, though, who is deaf, wasn't woken. Foscam, the camera's maker, issued an emergency patch after vulnerabilities were exposed in April, but it's not clear if the family had updated their camera with the latest software. North Korea has announced that it's produced a smartphone. The Arirang, which was shown to the North Korean leader Kim Jong-un during a factory visit, appears to run a version of the Android operating system. Experts say the smartphone was probably made in Hong Kong and then shipped to the North Korean factory for inspection. Apple has been refused permission to take aerial shots of the Norwegian capital Oslo for its Maps app, leaving the city in flat 2D. For the moment, at least. Norway's security authority has cited security concerns as the reason for the refusal, but offered alternative ways for Apple to get some 3D shots of parts of the city. It also pointed out other places that can't be viewed in 3D either. For example, the USA's Department of Defense in Arlington and the CIA headquarters at Langley. And finally, while Oslo might be out of bounds to Apple Maps, it seems that Google has bagged access to a TARDIS via Street View. Visiting the tube station at Earl's Court in London reveals Doctor Who's transport parked outside. Clicking on the blue box itself opens an explorable TARDIS control room, which, true to form, is more spacious on the inside than out. We've talked before about the idea of crowdfunding, where numbers of people contribute a small amount of money each to a project, sometimes in return for payback at the end if it's a success. Now, it's gained a lot of visibility recently through sites like Kickstarter, which kickstarts small business projects. But over in Silicon Valley, where the movement started, it's developing a whole new angle, and along the way, raising some interesting ethical questions. Richard Taylor reports on one website which is hoping to change the game in the world of charity.
More than 1 billion people in the developing world lack access to effective medical care. A few dollars could make the difference between life and death, but all too often that money never arrives. So could the answer be found in the principle of crowdfunding, the idea that large numbers of individuals contribute small amounts of cash online to a particular cause? Well, now a new online venture, Whatsie, is bringing this approach to healthcare charity. The site posts profiles and pictures of people needing medical attention in the hope that internet users will donate money to help. The idea was conceived 2 years ago in a spark of realization.
Remember, I was traveling on the back of a bus, and a woman got on the bus and started asking all the local passengers for donations to pay for her son's medical treatment. Now, I was initially skeptical. I think anyone that travels a lot, you start to build up a little bit of a wall in front of you. But it seemed like after only a few moments that the majority of the passengers on the bus started to give this woman donations for her son's medical care. I couldn't understand why they trusted her, and it was because she was passing around her son's medical record. And I remember when the woman got off the bus, I had an epiphany and thought, we can crowdfund creative projects on Kickstarter. We can crowdfund microloans on Kiva.org. Why on earth is there not a website we can crowdfund medical care for people in need?
And so WotC was born, named after the town where that story played out. A year after launch, WotC has provided one-off medical treatment for around 550 cases. And with a 99% success rate, the crowdfunding non-profit is being hailed as revolutionary by some Silicon Valley tech investors who've just donated $1.2 million to fund WotC's own long-term health. It's a fact which crowdfunding experts say is notable in itself.
There are, over 700 crowdfunding websites now globally, and certainly it is very significant that Y Combinator and the other backers that they already have are behind this idea.
Crowdfunding has become a bit of a buzzword here in Northern California over the past few years, but until now it's been confined largely to the realm of businesses and small individual enterprise. Moving it into the realm of philanthropic healthcare does present some unique ethical issues. Perhaps the biggest, the idea that the site is potentially simply a showcase for a kind of medical lottery, helping the lucky few who appeal to WotC's partners and who also elicit an emotional pull for individual donors.
Yeah, so the way WotC works is that when we receive a patient profile from a doctor, we guarantee funding for that patient, and we tell the doctor, you can provide medical care to this patient whenever is medically appropriate.
Donors can see their money is being well spent and aid properly administered by way of an almost uncomfortably transparent document on WotC's website, showing a granular breakdown of the startup's own operational activity. That could present privacy issues in future, adding to other potential pitfalls as the site expands.
Scaling a business is always a challenge. WotC is going to face scaling issues in many areas, just like every business does. Certainly, how they are going to manage kind of ethics and decision making as they scale will be a challenge. And that's why they will need to include things like medical boards and ethics advisors.
And some health economics experts worry that despite WotC's noble aims, it risks potentially doing more harm than good.
If you're relying on crowdsourcing and showcasing particular instances of people who have heart-tugging stories, then you may be funding people who seriously need help and you may be saving their life. But with that saved money, could you have saved many more individuals by investing in even more cost-effective global health efforts, for example, on prevention?
WotC can undoubtedly boast some small-scale success stories, but it's questionable whether it's likely to create more than a ripple in the ocean of international aid efforts.
Richard Taylor on the kickstarting of medical care. Now, earlier we were talking about cyber security, and that might have got you thinking about your own personal security, specifically how good your choice of password is. You have changed it from password, haven't you? Yeah. Well, whichever word you have chosen, Kate Russell's first website this week may have a shock for you. Here's Webscape.
Few things in life are completely safe, but you can improve your odds against internet hackers by using an incredibly safe password. Check your secure password creation skills on howsecureismypassword.net. And then go and make a new one to use that you haven't just given to a random website, just in case.
The Living Social password hack earlier this year was huge. 50 million people affected. It's the kind of number people sit up and take notice of. But they aren't the only victims. LinkedIn, Evernote, eHarmony, Yahoo, Twitter, Sony, Twice, all big names that have fallen foul to this kind of attack on a massive scale. So you better make sure you're running a secure password system wherever you sign up on the web.
And it seems a lot of us are still using ridiculously unsafe examples, like 12345 and password. A password generator like this can help if you're struggling to come up with something original. And if you're worried about remembering all your super safe login details, a password manager might be worth looking into. LastPass, KeepPass or 1Password are all excellent choices that offer a safe and secure lockup for your logins.
which came first, the chicken or the egg?
Expand your horizons and your mind with a wealth of great science video, courtesy of the Royal Institution of Great Britain at richannel.org. As well as delivering the pick of the Royal Institution's own videos and lectures, they scour the web to showcase the very best of the science that they find.
You might be familiar with the Royal Institution's Christmas lectures, which have been inspiring children and adults through spectacular scientific demonstrations since 1825. Check out the videos on this site. I defy anybody with even a passing curiosity about the world we live in not to be totally caught up in the series.
Browse through the collections, search by keyword, or take a dive into a theme. It's all there for the taking on this brilliant free scientific resource.
Einstein reckons if we was to travel at the speed of light, we would need an infinite amount of energy.
Image recognition has come on leaps and bounds in recent years, and there are some great accessibility tools coming out of the advances, like Money Reader app for iPhone. At around £7, it's not cheap, but could be a real cash saver, literally, if you need it.
£50. It's a rich man's world. £50.
I was amazed by how rapidly and accurately this scanner can identify various global banknotes, even folded up and held at various different angles and orientations. It's a great little tool to help those with impaired vision know exactly what they're handing over.
$1.
Right now, the app works in lots of different languages, from French to Japanese, but only recognises US dollars, euros, British pounds, Canadian dollars and Australian dollars.
£10. It's a rich man's world.
The landscapes created for video games are often stunning, but it's kind of hard to appreciate them when aliens and bad guys are shooting at you constantly. YouTube user Ultra Brilliant has launched a series of videos this week called Other Places that let you enjoy the majesty of these digital vistas without all that messy fighting business. And I think I have just 1 second left, so check out this visual representation of what happens on the web in just 1 second. Mind equals blown.
Kate Russell's Webscape, and those links are available at our website if you missed them, as always. bbc.co.uk/click is the address you need. And if you'd like to get in touch about anything you've seen this week, then you can email us. We're at click@bbc.co.uk, and you'll also find us on Twitter, Google+, and Facebook too. That's it for now, though. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.